You're born in the wrong story. You're born in Westeros, which sounds exciting until you realize you're not a Stark or a Targaryen or even one of those scheming minor lords who die mid-toast. You're just a person, unarmed, unnamed, unimportant. Your mother gives birth to you in a drafty hut that smells like smoke and despair. Your father's already missing 3 fingers and half his hope. He says he fought for the king. You don't ask which one, the answer changes every decade. You grow up surrounded by mud, turnips, and trauma. The holy trinity of peasantry. No one writes songs about you. You don't have a sword, a sigil, or even shoes that match. You have calluses, a cough, and a deep understanding that if anyone in armor rides by, you should start pretending to pray. Because in Westeros, you don't live in the story. You survive around it. Childhood. The tutorial level for misery. Your first memory is of cold. The kind that crawls into your bones and rents a room there for life. Your second memory? Hunger. By the time you're old enough to walk, you've already learned the rules. Don't talk back to soldiers. Don't look a noble in the eye. Don't ask what the wall is. It's somewhere north, and no one comes back from there anyway. You play with sticks because toys are for princes. You learn that bread is currency, and rats are, technically, protein. Sometimes you dream of what's beyond your village, castles, tournaments, dragons. And then someone reminds you, travel costs money, and you have none. So you stay. You help your father mend fences and dig trenches for men who'll probably die before the next harvest. Every task feels like foreshadowing, and when the Septon visits, he says things like, "The gods test the humble most." You wonder if the gods ever get tired of testing. Adolescence, puberty, plague, and pointless wars. You hit your teens, which in Westeros is adulthood with extra acne. That's when war comes through. It always does. No one knows who started it. Maybe a king died, maybe a wolf looked at a lion funny. Maybe someone couldn't handle rejection from a dragon lady. Either way, you're drafted. Not because you're brave, but because you're available. They give you a stick, call it a spear, and tell you to defend your realm. Which realm? You're not sure. Borders move faster than rumors. You march for days, starve for weeks, and fight for seconds. Your first battle smells like iron and wet dirt. Your commander screams orders no one hears. Your friend Jory dies beside you, eyes wide, still holding the bread he was saving for lunch. You don't become a hero. You just become quieter. That's the thing about Westeros. Trauma isn't cinematic. It's constant. The economics of misery. War ends. Someone won. You're not sure who, but the banners changed and the taxes doubled. You return home to find your village half burned and your house quarter stolen. A tax collector arrives with soldiers. He says,
"The king needs coin for peace."
You think, so did the last one. You hand over the few coins you hid under the floorboards. He takes your goat too, for the realm. That's how you learn the economics of Westeros. You lose money when there's war. You lose more when there isn't. You start brewing ale to trade, but the Lord's men confiscate it. You try farming, but the land's poisoned from last year's siege. And gods help you if winter comes, because food doesn't grow in poetry, and hunger doesn't care about allegiances. Love and other bad investments. You fall in love once. She's a baker's daughter. Soft voice, tired eyes, hands that smell like flour instead of blood. You plan to marry her, maybe have children. Then a group of knights passes through town. One of them takes an interest in her. You watch helplessly as she's escorted away. No one intervenes, because in Westeros, justice is a luxury item. Weeks later, you find her body by the river. The local Septon calls it the god's will. That's when something in you dies. Not hope exactly, but the belief that hope ever existed here. You don't cry, you just keep working. Because in this world, grief is a privilege too. The psychology of powerlessness. You start to notice how the powerful move differently. They don't flinch at screams. They don't look down when they walk through villages. Their confidence isn't courage, it's insulation. They're surrounded by titles, steel, and stories that make their cruelty sound noble. Meanwhile, you learn to make yourself small. Not metaphorically, literally. You keep your head low when soldiers pass, your voice quiet when lords argue, your thoughts locked behind clenched teeth. Psychologists today would call it learned helplessness. In Westeros, it's called survival. Every act of submission becomes second nature. How to nod without agreeing, smile without speaking, exist without offending. And slowly, you forget what it feels like to be human without permission. The red wedding effect. Rumors travel fast. You hear whispers about kings and weddings and rivers that run red. It's far away, yet somehow it still ruins your week. Because every time nobles betray each other, it's your village that pays the price. Armies march, bandits follow, supplies vanish. You've never been to a castle, but you've rebuilt yours, your own hut, 3 times because some lord's vengeance needed directions. You start calling every noble your grace, even if they're just a guy with a shiny belt. You've seen what happens when you misjudge importance. They make an example out of you. And in Westeros, examples don't live long enough to complain. Religion, pick a god, any god. When things get bad, and they always do, people turn to gods. There are 7, or 1, or a lord of light who burns people for fun. You try praying to all of them just in case, but nothing changes. The wars keep coming, the winters keep killing, and faith starts to feel like another kind of hunger. Still, you keep a charm around your neck, a small 7-pointed star your mother carved before she died. Not because you believe, but because in a place like this, superstition feels safer than truth. The war of everyone versus everyone. Years pass. You've survived 3 kings, 2 queens, and more rightful heirs than you can count. You're not loyal anymore. You're just tired. The banners change so often you stop painting yours. You just hang a blank sheet and tell whoever wins it's theirs. Your son grows up asking, "Who's the king now?" You shrug.
"Whichever one hasn't killed us yet."
And that's the philosophy of the commoner, moral flexibility, powered by exhaustion. Because when power changes hands every season, loyalty is just another way to die early. The dragon problem. One day, you look up and see it, a shape in the sky, wings like sails, breath like a forge. At first, it's beautiful, the kind of myth your ancestors prayed for. Then it opens its mouth, and your field becomes fire. You don't even have time to run. After, when the smoke clears, you find what's left of your home, black ash, melted iron, bones that used to be neighbors. They call it divine conquest. You call it Tuesday. That's when you realize kings, queens, dragons, they all claim to change the world. But the only thing that changes is who kills you. The psychology of endurance. You stop fearing death, not because you're brave, but because you've seen it so often it's become background noise. What terrifies you now is continuing, living through yet another winter, another war, another round of noble promises wrapped in blood. You wonder what it does to the human mind, this endless state of hypervigilance. Every creak becomes danger, every silence feels like a setup. You sleep lightly, dream rarely, and trust never. That's not resilience, that's trauma with better posture. You're not surviving anymore, you're decaying slowly enough to call it living. When hope becomes dangerous. Then, something new. Whispers spread of a queen who wants to break the wheel. You want to believe it. You imagine a life where peasants can farm without burning, where children grow old enough to forget hunger. Then the dragons come again. The city burns. The wheel doesn't break. It rolls over you. That's the cruelest part of hope. In Westeros, it's not a spark. It's kindling. The sociology of fear. Fear becomes culture. You learn it from birth, pass it down like heirlooms. Your son grows up learning which soldiers to avoid, which silences mean raids, which nobles to never name aloud. You raise him not to dream, because dreams get you noticed, and being noticed gets you dead. Every generation repeats the same ritual: rebuild, submit, survive. That's how power stays eternal here, not by ruling hearts, but by exhausting them. The end of the world, again. Then winter actually comes. Not poetic winter, not the snowflakes like feathers mulled wine by the fire kind. The real one, White Walkers, dead things, and cold so mean it feels personal. You wake up one morning, try to breathe, and your nose freezes shut. The chickens stop laying eggs, mostly because they're now poultry popsicles. You try chopping wood, but the axe bounces off like it's hitting steel. The sky turns this weird silver gray that makes everything look like a sad painting of regret. You think, maybe this is it. Maybe the gods are cashing out. Maybe they've finally gotten bored of watching Westeros reruns. Then the rumors start. Whispers drift south about a man who came back from the dead. A brooding one. Always looks cold even when it's warm. You've heard of him. Jon Snow, the bastard of Winterfell. The man so allergic to joy that even his sword probably sighs when he draws it. They say he united the wildlings. The wildlings. The same folk who used to steal your cows and your cousins, depending on who was slower. Now they're apparently on our side. You're not sure what that means, but it sounds like more mouths to feed and fewer cows. The talk goes that Jon Snow made peace with them, let them through the wall, married a dragon queen or didn't. It's hard to tell. The stories keep changing depending on who's drunkest. Some say he's a Stark, some say he's a Targaryen, and some say he's a moody snowman brought to life by guilt and northern angst. Either way, he's out there with the wildlings, fighting the dead, while you're here, crouched behind your half-frozen cottage, clutching your last piece of bread and pretending it's a potato. And then there's the Dragon Queen, Daenerys, something unpronounceable. They say she's beautiful, terrifying, and slightly allergic to rational decisions. You hear she has dragons, real ones, which sounds impressive until you realize dragons don't pay for firewood or bread. The world's ending, and you're still broke. Still, part of you hopes they win. You picture Jon Snow standing heroically in the blizzard, hair perfectly tragic, whispering something deep like,
Winter is coming.
even though, newsflash, it's already here. You imagine him and the wildlings charging into battle, fighting dead things with swords made of fire and stubbornness. You wonder if they eat. You wonder if they share. You wonder if anyone up there even remembers that peasants exist. And then, silence. The ravens stop bringing news. The sky starts to warm a little. The snow softens. The dead things stop walking. One day, you wake up and there's mud again. You think, guess somebody won. You're not sure who. Maybe Jon Snow did something heroic. Maybe the dragons did something fiery. Maybe everyone just got tired of dying and agreed to stop. Either way, the apocalypse clock resets to 0. The White Walkers go back to wherever they came from, probably north of rent prices, and life returns to the usual grind. The nobles argue about crowns, the lords tax the peasants, and the peasants. Well, you go back to praying your cow doesn't die before you do. That's the real joke of Westeros. Even the end of the world can't unionize the peasants. You survive the long night, but not the next rent collection. You survive armies of the dead, but not another round of lordly reconstruction taxes. And when Jon Snow walks off into the cold again, because apparently being alive and appreciated was too mainstream, you just sigh. Because that's Westeros. Heroes save the world, dragons melt the throne, and you're still stuck rebuilding your roof out of the same burnt wood they set on fire to protect the realm. Winter came, winter went, and you're still here, still hungry, still waiting for someone to invent democracy. The aftermath nobody wrote about. Years later, a new king sits on the throne. People cheer. You don't. You've seen this story too many times to believe the ending. Your body's tired, your mind quieter than it should be. You farm dirt that's more bone than soil, and watch your son repeat your life in slower motion. Sometimes a bard visits. He sings of dragons, heroes, and destinies fulfilled. You listen, nod politely, and go back to work. Because no one writes songs about the man in the ashes, and no one asks what it costs to live in someone else's legend. Why it really sucks. So, why does it suck to be a civilian in Game of Thrones? Because you're collateral in every plot twist. Because your life depends on the mood of men who've never shoveled mud. Because your gods don't answer, your kings don't care, and your pain doesn't rhyme. Because your entire existence is proof that power isn't built, it's harvested. You live through fire and famine just to be forgotten in someone else's victory speech. And yet, you still wake up, still plant seeds in soil that remembers blood, still teach your child to look toward the sunrise, not the smoke. Because the cruelest magic of all, stronger than dragons, stronger than death, is hope that refuses to die, even when everything else does. Which would you rather be? A noble playing the game, or a peasant forced to survive it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Smash that like button if your brain feels 30% darker, but 70% wiser. And hit subscribe if you're into ideas that stick. Figures that sketch. Ready for your next system update? Tap here and keep playing smart.